Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're going to be looking at how media shapes our perceptions, especially when it comes to women. We'll be exploring this across the board, from traditional broadcast media to social media. And, a good place to start, I think, is with a pretty startling stat. A Purdue University study found that coverage of women's sports in 2019 was almost the same as it was back in 1989. That's like 30 years with barely any change. So
Yeah, it really makes you wonder what's going on there, doesn't it? And this underrepresentation, it goes way beyond sports, too. There was this global report in 2015 that showed women made up only 25% of the subjects in news coverage. And just 19% of the experts they interviewed were women, and only 37% of the reporters. These numbers are just crazy. They really highlight how women's voices and experiences are often just kind of pushed aside.
Yeah, so we're seeing this pattern of limited visibility, but what's the real impact here? I mean, does it actually affect how we see women and the opportunities that are available to them?
Oh, it absolutely does. Just imagine for a second. You're a young girl, and you're growing up seeing mostly men as experts and leaders, even just as the main characters in stories. It sends this subtle message that certain roles or achievements are just more attainable for men,
Yeah.
And this limited representation, it can just unknowingly perpetuate these biases and reinforce stereotypes that we might not even realize we're absorbing.
It's like that saying, you can't be what you can't see. If girls aren't exposed to diverse female role models in the media, then it's got to be way harder to see themselves breaking those barriers.
Exactly. That lack of visibility can impact everything. Career aspirations, perceptions of women's expertise, even their own self-confidence. It's like this constant message saying women are less capable or less important.
So then how do we change this? What are some of the solutions that are being explored to tackle this problem of underrepresentation?
Well, there's this one organization I think you'll find pretty interesting. It's called potency.world. They're focused on empowering young women. And one way they're doing that is by actively creating gender equity stories. They're actually aiming for 100% female-led content within their academies, across all types of media. It's ambitious, but it shows real commitment to changing the narrative.
That's pretty cool. Now, we've been talking about traditional media, but what about the big ones, social media? I have to admit that while it has given a voice to so many, I'm also a little concerned about the addictive nature of it and the pressure it puts on young girls, especially.
Yeah, social media is a bit of a double-edged sword. On one hand, it's this incredible tool for connection and communication, but on the other, the way it's designed. Those algorithms constantly curating our feeds, it can create these echo chambers and reinforce potentially harmful ideas.
Yeah, that's what worries me. It's like being trapped in this bubble where you only see things that confirm your existing beliefs. Or even worse, these unrealistic portrayals that make you feel inadequate.
Exactly. And these algorithms are designed to keep us hooked. Let's say you start engaging with content about dieting or a certain body image, right? The algorithm picks up on that and starts feeding you more and more of the same. And that can lead to a really distorted sense of reality and unhealthy comparisons.
It is a little scary, to be honest. It's like these algorithms are shaping our perceptions without us even realizing it. And especially for young people who are still forming their identities, it seems particularly risky. So how do we even navigate this?
Well, potency.world has actually taken a pretty unique approach to this. They provide their students with curated devices, essentially shielding them from external social media while creating a more controlled environment. They've also developed their own bespoke platform with a very specific purpose in mind.
So they created their own social media platform. That's really interesting. What does that actually look like? What makes it different?
You can think of it like a personalized recommendation system, but instead of suggesting movies or music, it's curated to promote positive interactions, mentorship, and personal growth. They fill the platform with stories of women succeeding in all kinds of fields, challenging those limiting narratives we were talking about before.
So it's not just about limiting exposure to the negative stuff. It's about actively providing a counter-narrative, a space where young women can be inspired and empowered by positive role models and, supportive connections. That's a really cool concept.
It is. It really gets at the heart of why representation matters. It's not just about seeing people who look like you. It's about seeing people who defy stereotypes and broaden your understanding of what's possible.
Okay, so we've seen how traditional media often falls short, and we've explored how social media can be both a problem and a potential solution. But is it enough to just control the content that people are exposed to? I mean, don't we also need to equip them with the tools to think critically about the media they encounter, even when it's not curated?
Oh, you're absolutely right. It's like teaching someone to fish instead of just giving them a fish. Even with a curated environment, developing those media literacy skills is essential for navigating the complexities of the media landscape independently.
So then how do we do that? How do we help people, especially young people, become more critical consumers of media and not just passive recipients of whatever messages are thrown at them?
Well, it starts with understanding that media isn't just entertainment. It's this powerful tool that shapes our perceptions and influences our understanding of the world. And recognizing that every piece of media is created with a specific purpose in mind, from selling products to promoting certain values.
That makes sense. If you understand the underlying motivations and techniques used to craft a message, then you're less likely to be swayed by it blindly. But how do we break down those messages? Where do we even begin?
Well, one way is to just start asking questions, like who created this message? What's their purpose? What techniques are they using to persuade me? Who might be left out of this story?
So it's like being a detective, looking for clues and questioning everything you see. But that can feel overwhelming. Where do we even start? And how do we make it engaging? Especially for young people who might see it as boring or preachy.
That's where the power of storytelling and relatable examples comes in.
Okay, I think we've reached a good point to wrap up this first part of our deep dive. Be sure to stay tuned. We'll be back to explore the power of storytelling and discuss some practical steps you can take to become a more conscious consumer of media.
So we were talking about becoming more critical consumers of media, right?
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't just eat anything without knowing what's in it, right? It's about being more mindful of the messages we're taking in about media.
I like that analogy. So to continue this detective work, how can we get better at spotting those underlying messages and understanding how they might be influencing us?
Well, one key thing is to pay attention to how women are being portrayed. Are they presented as complex individuals with their own motivations and desires? Or are they just reduced to stereotypes and cliches?
Right, like are they just the damsel in distress waiting to be rescued, or the overbearing boss lady who sacrifices everything for her career? Those kind of flat portrayals don't really reflect the diverse reality of women's experiences, do they?
Exactly. It's about looking beyond those surface level representations and asking deeper questions. Like, what are her motivations? What are her challenges? How is she interacting with the world around her?
And if those portrayals feel limiting or unrealistic, what can we do about it? Is it enough to just be aware of these issues, or are there more proactive steps we can take?
Awareness is definitely a great first step, but it's important to move beyond just observation. Think about the media you choose to consume. Are you supporting creators and platforms that are committed to showcasing a wider range of female experiences?
That's a good point. It's like voting with our wallets and our attention. If we want to see more diverse and authentic portrayals of women in media, we need to support the people who are creating that content.
Right. And don't underestimate the power of feedback. Let media companies know what you want to see. Write a review, send an email, or engage on social media. Make your voice heard and let them know that there's an audience for stories that go beyond those same old stereotypes.
So it's about taking an active role in shaping the media landscape rather than just passively consuming whatever's put in front of us. But I want to bring it back to the personal level for a second. Have you ever encountered those limiting stereotypes? Those moments where you felt like you were being put in a box because of your gender?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think most women have experienced that at some point, whether it's being underestimated in a professional setting, having your ideas dismissed, or even just feeling like you have to work twice as hard to be taken seriously.
It's so frustrating. But I also think those experiences can be incredibly motivating. It's like, okay, I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm going to show you what I'm capable of.
Totally agree. It's about channeling that frustration into positive action. It's about using our voices to challenge those stereotypes and create a world where women are seen and valued for their full potential.
So to wrap up this part of our conversation, it's not just about being aware of how media portrays women. It's about actively engaging with that portrayal.
Yeah.
It's about asking critical questions, supporting creators who are doing it right, and using our voices to demand better representation.
Exactly. And it's also about remembering that media literacy is a journey, not a destination. There's always more to learn, more to question, and more ways to engage. It's about being curious, being critical, and being an active participant in shaping the media landscape.
And speaking of shaping the media landscape, let's shift gears for a moment and talk about the impact of algorithms. We touched on this earlier with social media, but I think it deserves a deeper dive. You mentioned how algorithms can create echo chambers and reinforce biases. How does that actually work? What's the science behind it?
Imagine you're browsing online, reading articles or watching videos. Every click, every share is being tracked by these algorithms that are constantly learning your preferences. And based on that data, they start to personalize your experience, showing you more of what they think you want to see.
So it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. The more you engage with certain types of content, the more likely you are to see similar content in the future, and the less likely you are to be exposed to anything that challenges your existing beliefs or worldview.
Exactly. And while this personalization can be helpful in some ways, like helping you discover new music or books you might enjoy, it can also be incredibly limiting. If you're only being exposed to information that confirms your existing beliefs, you're missing out on the opportunity to learn, grow, and broaden your understanding of the world.
Yeah, it's like being stuck in a bubble, only seeing one small slice of reality. And that can have a huge impact on how we see the world, how we relate to others, and even how we make decisions. But if these algorithms are constantly learning and adapting to our behavior, isn't it almost impossible to break free from those patterns?
It's definitely a challenge, but it's not impossible. The key is to become more aware of those patterns and to actively seek out diverse perspectives.
Okay, so it's about taking control of the algorithm rather than letting it control us. But how do we do that in practice?
Well, one strategy is to be more intentional about the content you're engaging with. Make a conscious effort to seek out information from sources you might not normally agree with. Read articles from different publications, watch documentaries from diverse filmmakers, or follow social media accounts that challenge your existing beliefs.
So it's about diversifying our media diet, just like we would diversify our food choices for a healthy lifestyle. Instead of sticking to the same old menu, we're trying new things, expanding our palate, and getting a more balanced intake of information.
Exactly. And another strategy is to be more mindful of the way you're interacting with social media. Are you constantly liking and sharing posts that confirm your existing beliefs? If so, try to branch out and engage with content that offers a different perspective.
So it's not just about what we consume, but also how we interact with it.
Absolutely. Every click, every share sends a signal to the algorithm about what you're interested in. And the more you reinforce those existing patterns, the more likely you are to be stuck in that echo chamber.
That's really important. I think a lot of people don't realize the power of those small actions. But let's say we've taken those steps and we're starting to break free from those echo chambers. What's next? How do we go beyond just being aware of these issues and actually start to use media as a tool for personal growth and empowerment?
That's where we start to tap into the truly transformative potential of media. And that's what we'll explore in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay, so we talked about the challenges of media representation and how algorithms can shape our perceptions without us even realizing it. But now I want to kind of flip the script and look at how we can actually use media as a tool for positive change.
Yeah, it's a powerful shift in perspective, right? Moving from being passive consumers to active creators and curators of our own media experience.
Exactly. So how do we do that? How do we harness the power of media for good? You know, both for ourselves and for the wider world.
Well, one way is to be more intentional about the stories we seek out and the voices we amplify. Think about the narratives that resonate with you, that inspire you, that challenge your thinking, and make a conscious effort to share those stories with others.
It's like curating our own personal media library.
Right.
Filling it with content that nourishes our minds and expands our horizons. But with so much content out there, it can be overwhelming to even know where to start.
That's where curiosity and exploration come in. Think about your interests, your passions, the issues that you care about, and start digging deeper. Look for documentaries, podcasts, articles, and books that offer diverse perspectives on those topics.
So being an active seeker of knowledge and inspiration rather than just passively scrolling through whatever pops up in our feeds.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of recommendations. Ask friends, family, colleagues for their favorite books, podcasts, or films. Join online communities that share your interests. Attend events or workshops that explore topics you're passionate about.
It's like creating this network of shared discovery where we're constantly learning from and inspiring each other. But it's not just about consuming content, is it? We can be creators too, right?
Oh, absolutely. The rise of social media and digital platforms has given everyone the opportunity to be a storyteller. Whether you're writing blog posts, creating videos, sharing photos, or even just engaging in thoughtful conversations online, you have the power to contribute to the media landscape.
It's kind of empowering, right? To think that we're not just passive recipients of media, but active participants in shaping the narrative.
It is. And it's important to remember that even small actions can make a difference. Sharing an article you found insightful, recommending a book by an author from an underrepresented community, or even just leaving a thoughtful comment on a social media post can all contribute to creating a more diverse and inclusive media landscape.
It's like planting these seeds of change one small action at a time. But let's bring it back to potency.world for a second. You mentioned they're taking this really unique approach to empowering young women through media. Can you tell us a bit more about their strategy?
What's so fascinating about potency.world is their multi-pronged approach. They're not just trying to create more content featuring women, they're trying to fundamentally change the way young women interact with and perceive media.
That's ambitious. So how are they actually doing that?
Well, one of their strategies, as we mentioned before, is to create a controlled media environment within their academies. They shield their students from external social media and curate the content they provide, ensuring that it's positive, inspiring, and representative of the diverse possibilities that are available to women.
It's like they're creating a media utopia, a space where young women can explore their passions and develop their identities without being bombarded by those limiting stereotypes and unrealistic expectations that we see so much in mainstream media.
Exactly. And by doing so, they're not just teaching them about media literacy, they're embodying it. They're showing these young women that they have the power to choose the stories they consume, to shape the narratives that define them, and to create a media landscape that reflects their values and aspirations.
That's a powerful message. It's that we're not just victims of media, but active agents of change. But for those of us who aren't part of this curated media environment, what can we do to create that kind of positive change in our own lives and in the wider world?
I think it starts with recognizing that we all have a role to play. We can all be more mindful of the media we consume, more intentional about the stories we share, and more vocal about the changes we want to see.
It's about taking ownership of our media experiences rather than just passively accepting what's put in front of us.
Exactly. And recognizing that media is a powerful tool that can be used for both good and bad. By being more conscious and intentional in our interactions with media, we can harness its power to create a more just, equitable, and inspiring world.
This has been such an insightful conversation. I feel like I've gained a whole new perspective on the power of media and the responsibility we all have as consumers. But before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with a final thought-provoking question. Think about the media you consume on a daily basis, the news articles, the social media posts, the TV shows, the films. How do those stories shape your perception of the world? How do they influence your beliefs, your values, your actions? And most importantly, what steps can you take starting today to be a more conscious consumer of media and to create a media landscape that reflects the world you want to live in?
We encourage all of you to reflect on these questions and to keep exploring these important issues. Remember, your voice matters, your choices matter. And together we can create a media landscape that's more diverse, more equitable, and more inspiring for everyone.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll be back next time with another exploration of a fascinating topic. Until then, keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep shaping the narrative.